attendance when you have something that you'd like to say. And first of all, we're going to go around and do attendance. If you'd like to say present when you're here, Mayor Bailey.
I'm here.
Councillor Pierce has announced that he'll be joining as soon as he's able to. Member Brown.
Here.
Member Haley.
Here.
And Member Verhey. As well, we have an attendance inspector. Thank you. As well, we have an attendance inspector Anderson and acting staff sergeant Hampson from the OPP, and Robert Hewitt should be joining shortly from the County of Brant. The first order of business is we'll be calling election of chair and vice chair. Do I have nominations for the position of chair for the 2021 calendar year? Member Brown?
I'd like to nominate Member Haley as chair.
Mayor Bailey?
I'll second that.
Member Brown, or Member Haley, do you accept?
Yes, thank you.
Is there any more nominations? Do I have someone to move to close nominations? Mayor Bailey? And a seconder? Mr. Brown? And do I have nominations for the position of vice chair for the Police Services Board for the 2021 calendar year? Member Haley?
I'd like to nominate Member Brown for vice chair.
And do I have a seconder? Mayor Bailey? And Member Brown, do you accept?
Yes, I do.
And do I have any more nominations? Do I have someone to move to close nominations?
I'll move to close.
Member Haley, you have the chair.
Thank you, everybody. That was quick and easy and efficient. Here's to another great year to get working together on the Police Service Board. And thank you for everybody for your support. It's been, as Mayor Bailey and Councillor Pierce know, it's been an interesting year, no doubt, for 2020. And here's to a better 2021 for everybody, and to a time when we can actually meet in person again. So without further ado, let's get cracking on the agenda. Just a reminder that Nancy did tell us we are meeting on Zoom, and there are folks potentially watching on our YouTube stream. We don't know, we can't see who they are with the Zoom here, but it's being streamed on the county's YouTube channel. So just to be cognizant of that. So let's move into the approval of the agenda. And Nancy did publish an addendum to that yesterday, but at this time I'll call for a motion to approve the agenda, please. Member Brown and a seconder. Member Verhey. All those in favor? Carried, thank you. At this time, we need to ensure that we declare any pecuniary interests. Are there any that need to be noted? None, none at this time, Nancy. And we don't have any delegations or presentations today, so we can move forward on the adoption of our December meeting minutes from December 15th. Anybody would like to put forward a motion for that? Mayor Bailey, thank you. Seconder? Member Brown? Okay, any discussion on the minutes? Okay, let's call the question then. All those in favor of the minutes? Carried, thank you. So we do have a few items here on business arising from the minutes. Some of them, just as an update, as a follow-up from our December meeting. So I did ask, and if there's anything else, please let me know. But I did ask Nancy to include the extended service office in Canesville, an update on that. I'm not sure, Robin, if you're able to give us an update on the status of where things are at to get that established. I know that you've probably been working with Inspector Anderson and Staff Sergeant Hampson, so I just wasn't sure if you could provide us an update on that at this time. Oh, there you are.
So through you, Madam Chair, I've been in contact with Staff Sergeant Hampson, and we're still trying to narrow it down. Basically, we have two options right now, potential options, and that's one is the old Onondaga Hall, but there's no Wi-Fi there, so that's an issue. And the only other location is not optimal because it's not actually in the county, but the new paramedic building, which is at the end of, close to the end of Henry Street. So we haven't got a final decision on that yet, but those are what the two things we're looking at.
Staff Sergeant Hampson, any additional comments or input?
No, I have been working with Robin on that, and we would prefer something that's out in the county, as that would give us a better bang for our buck in providing urgent services to the county residents rather than being located within the city of Brantford. So hopefully we can find another location that's better suited. Unfortunately, with the Onondaga Hall, there is no Wi-Fi there, which pretty much nullifies us having internet access. And we really wouldn't be able to have any benefit of being in a satellite office if we don't have the ability to perform our work there. So hopefully there can be a workaround in there, but I don't know what it is at this time or what the plans are for additional building of county facilities out in the East Zone.
So they are building.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Robin.
I was just going to say they are building the new fire halls and community center, but there's not, well, they're not done yet. Well, the one fire hall is almost done, but they weren't built with space in them allocated for this purpose. So that's a bit
They were not, Robin, or they were?
They weren't.
Okay.
So the hunt continues. I am going to talk to our business and technology solutions staff to see about the options of getting internet at the old Onondaga Town Hall.
Any questions or comments on that? Is correct me if I'm wrong, is the old Onondaga Hall, is that a separate group that runs that building now? Yeah.
It is a separate group. I know they usually try to rent out that location to cover off some of their basic costs, but with COVID, they can't really do that anyway. So they might be looking for some kind of compensation as well.
And the new community center that's being built, you said there's a community center and a fire hall being built in Kingsville, separate buildings?
To be honest, I'm not sure if they're separate buildings.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm not involved in the build of those, but I can check. Maybe Nancy knows. Nancy looks like she might want to say something.
Yes, they are separate buildings. They're side by side though.
Side by side. And the community center wouldn't have eventually a space that would be suitable, like I know here in St. George, the community center has a spot here as a satellite office, and there wouldn't be anything in that new build in the community center?
There potentially could be. I'd have to check with General Manager Cindy Stevenson.
Okay. I know that's a longer term.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hopefully you guys, so you two together can sort it out and we get this resolved so that we have a spot out there for the members to use. And also, I think your point, Staff Sergeant Hampson, is the visibility in the community is important too. Okay, thank you. I guess I put on the agenda the community focused patrols, and I don't know if Inspector Anderson or Staff Sergeant Hampson are going to cover that in their report, but we provided feedback on those areas, and I just wasn't sure if there was anything further that you wanted to update us on outside of the report that that has been prepared.
Good morning, everyone. It's Lisa. I've just been off for the last couple of weeks, Jennifer. So was there follow-up from that last report?
I don't think that there was specific follow-up. I just wanted to make sure that if anybody had anything, that this would be the time to do that. I'm hearing none, so that's fine. I should have noted though on business arising from the minutes, we can add it. Marty, you had some questions last meeting as well about Paris. So I think after we finish item C, if we could add a friendly amendment here as D is the Paris zone hour follow-up that you had some questions on, Marty. You're on mute.
Sorry, the first few words there, I missed that.
I just was suggesting that you had some questions at the last meeting about Paris zone hours that you asked Inspector Anderson to follow up on at the last meeting.
Yes, that's
And
correct.
I believe Inspector Anderson's prepared to give us some feedback. So that could be item D under business arising from the minutes.
Thank you.
Okay. So the detachment gift of appreciation, just as a follow-up on that, talking to Inspector Anderson, I'm happy to hear that our tokens of appreciation were well received by the members of our detachment. I kind of like the idea of the individual approach. That way everybody gets something. I mean, something to consider for future years versus other items. We still certainly can do the breakfasts or the barbecues or whatever, like we've discussed, but I do feel that the individual approach was unique and I think appreciated. I don't want to speak for the members of the detachment, but the feedback received has been good. I don't know, Inspector Anderson or Staff Sergeant Hampson, if you wanted to add anything in there.
Yes, it's Andrew speaking here. Yes, the members of the detachment were very appreciative of the thoughtfulness of the Police Services Board for the individual gifts. Everyone was able to receive one, and again, everyone likes chocolate, so it was very well received. Thank you again.
In talking to Inspector Anderson, you know, I guess it just reinforces that it's important to say thank you. So so we did that, and I think that's a great thing that everybody was able to have their work acknowledged. So that's great. Any other comments on that? None. Okay. So the next item then is the follow-up to Marty's questions about the Paris zone hours. Inspector Anderson, I know that you had looked into that some more. I don't know if you want to take, if Marty, if you have questions, or if Inspector Anderson, you want to just go into answering some of the follow-up that Marty had.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. Nancy, can I share my screen on here? Let me try and see if we can make this work. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to put it in a slideshow format here. So yeah, the question was, I think it was Councillor Pearson and Member Verhey brought up, we noticed a significant decrease in the Paris zone duty hours, really that we saw through October, November, December, and just asking some questions about that. So we did have a chance to go through and do some digging and try to pull up some information on that, which I was able to do for you. And I just wanted to present it just because the timing of this was troublesome, I think, for all of us because of the move from the location in Paris to the new location where our detachment is now. So I just wanted to make sure we were covering it off, it was covered off well, and that we provided an explanation in relation to those hours. So if you look at going through all of the PSB reports for 2020, these are the number of zone duty hours that were reported each month, Paris being the gray, east being the yellowy orange, west being the brown, north being the green, and then we also have our highway category in there as well. There's a percentage change in the data, but it's not showing up on the graph because of the comparison between the percentage and of course the high numbers that we have in the zone duty hours into the thousands. So, but it is there in the data. So you'll notice the Paris zone duty hours going up from January to May, a slight decrease into June and July, which is when our officers start their vacation periods, and then more of a drop into the latter part of the year. August, we talked about our overall hours were down because we started doing all the training, came back that we didn't do from January till July. So we had significant training hours. And then we went for the rest of the year there with our patrol hours and continuing with our training and yearly certifications. When I looked at the total calls for service, so just so everyone's clear, zone duty hours, when officers work a shift, they have to complete a document that accounts for all of their hours of work and what they did, what calls they responded to, where those calls were, how long they spent on those calls. So that's where the zone duty hours come from. So the zone duty hours somewhat reflect the number of calls for service that we're taking or created by the officers and that we're responding to. So looking at the total calls for service for 2020 versus 2019 in relation to the zones, the gray column in this graph is the number of calls for service in 2019, while the yellowy orange is 2020. So you'll notice that we saw a significant drop as well in the number of calls for service that we saw in Paris, which would equate to that drop in zone duty hours that we're seeing. So when we look at a Paris zone summary, Paris is one of our 5 zones, so it represents for us 20% of the county. It represents 32% of our total calls for service and represents 35% of our total zone duty hours. And like I said, we saw the calls for service decrease in 2020 in Paris by 35%. However, the zone duty hours only decreased by 11%. So of course, the obvious question is, why did we have such a significant calls for service decrease in Paris this year? When we look at this percentage change, that 35% represents just over 2,000 calls for service when you compare 2019 to 2020. We had talked at the last meeting about our suspicion in that being in relation to criminal record checks, and that's exactly what we found. So in 2020, we had 52% fewer criminal record checks conducted as compared to 2019. And most of that decrease is because of the COVID-19 restrictions. There's a significant period of time when we were only doing essential criminal record checks. We were not doing the normal volumes that we do. What we also found out is that if you remember, we transitioned to a provincial model for the collision reporting center, is also CRC, the criminal record checks. Where they were being done centrally out of a location, so it wasn't necessarily our detachment staff that was doing it. So what happened is, between our staff doing it, the new staff doing it, they were recording the addresses differently. Some of them were recording the address for the criminal record check incident as the detachment address, as it's an administrative task, and some were recording the addresses as the home address of the person requesting the criminal record check. So when we do look at that, there was, I just need to look at my numbers here. In Paris in 2019, we did 2,843 criminal record checks. And in 2020 for Paris, it only shows 980. So that shows a difference of just under 2,000 in the calls for service for Paris. So that 35% decrease can be significantly, almost 95% attributed to the criminal record check process and the decrease in those criminal record checks. And this last one is just showing that information in graph form, where you see in 2019, gray is the number of criminal record checks done in Paris. The blue is the total number of record checks being done for the county as compared to 2020, where you see that total number come down drastically, more than half, and then the dispersion between Paris and the other parts of the county. So it in no way, shape, or form is representing that we're spending less time on calls or patrol or anything else in Paris. The criminal record checks are a strictly administrative process, and I just wanted to make sure that we were all very clear on those patrol hours and the decrease that we were seeing. And now I need to find out how to not share my screen. And I think I was successful. So yeah, if there's any questions from anybody on that, but I think it's pretty straightforward with the numbers that we were able to find with the criminal record checks in relation to Paris.
Unfortunately, Councillor Pierce isn't here, but he'll have a copy of the slide deck, I would expect, with the minutes. Member Verhey, did you have some questions?
Just a quick follow-up question on that. It makes sense. Thank you, Lisa, for digging into that further. Would it not make sense to strip out the criminal record checks out of that zone, because it doesn't seem to fairly represent information, right? I mean, if I'm a Paris resident complaining about, this question kind of stemmed from the fact that with the detachment moving, and we're all in agreement that it's in a great location, but with the detachment moving and zone duty hours potentially or being perceived as decreasing in Paris, just how that shows optically to the residents of Paris. So would it not make sense to strip out those criminal record check hours if that's so high and it's more of an administrative thing for the county and not for that zone?
I don't want to strip out, because the zone duty hours are actually hours spent in policing in relation to that zone. They are still calls for service, and they are still captured as incidents and calls for service. Just because they're administrative task doesn't necessarily mean it still isn't captured as an incident. I will turn it over to Acting Staff Sergeant Hampson, though, because we have sought clarification on how those should be recorded, so there isn't any discrepancies into the future.
Yes, I was able to get clarification on this from our headquarters, and we are to use the residence address as the occurrence location for doing criminal record checks. With the turnover in staff that we have had, as well as with the record check process going remotely for the majority of 2020, that led to some confusion. Going forward, I've met with all of our staff, and they will be using the residence address as the occurrence location. So it will balance out over time. We've seen that dip in the zone duty hours now. Going forward, it should play itself out and balance itself out throughout the county. And you'll most likely see wherever the larger populations are going to be the ones that are having more criminal record checks. And that's where you'll see the change in the zone duty hours. So you'll have more from the east, more from the west, more from the north, and a number of fewer ones coming from Paris. But it will balance itself out over time. And I think if we look at this again in a few months, you'll see that it is the curve has flattened out, so to speak, with where the zone duty hours are, and that they're more accurately reflected that way.
Member Verhey, any follow-up?
Yeah, just one more through you, Madam Chair, to Acting Staff Sergeant Hampson. That's just so I'm totally clear. So when the record check is happening, it's that time is allocated based on that address, so that's going to go to the appropriate zone. Did I understand? That's how you explained it?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. Okay. Historically, it was all being done to the detachment address, which wasn't providing the best picture that we're seeing now.
Thank you very much for all that clarification.
Any other questions on that from anybody?
Just from myself, Madam Chair, if I could, in relation, I think there was a second part to Member Verhey's question as well in relation to East Zone. from the last meeting in relation to calls for service volume. So I just wanted to follow up with that as well. I did look into that. So if I look at East Zone for 2019, the level 1 calls for service that we had were 2,878. And the same time frame, so for 2020, we saw 3,029. So there was just a slight increase of about 200 more calls for the year in East Zone this year compared to last. So again, that discrepancy with Paris going down so significantly with those zone duty hours and East going up is for those two reasons. We saw a slight increase in the calls for service in East and then that significant decrease in Paris.
Any other follow-up? This is good information, good clarification to have to clarify the hours and the changes. Member Verhey, is that good, or is there anything else you'd like?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Inspector Anderson and Staff Sergeant Hansen, for following up on that. That was very insightful. Okay, if there's nothing else from business arising from the minutes, we'll move on to our statistics section of our agenda. So at this time, I'll ask Inspector Anderson. I'm not sure who's leading the report, but Inspector Anderson to deliver the December Detachment Commander's report.
Yeah, Madam Chair, that will be myself going through it today.
Great.
I'm just doing everything electronically here this morning, so I'm just tasking myself technology-wise. Okay, so I'll start out with the human resource update. So currently the OPP has 2 recruit classes on the go. One is just finishing and one is just starting. If you'll recall from the last report, we had reported that in the class that's just finishing, we'll be getting 4 new recruits in Brant County from that class. And those recruits, of course, as we talked about before, will be assigned a coach officer for a 1-year period before they're recommended for permanency with the Ontario Provincial Police. There is also a new recruit class that has just started at the beginning of January, and we've just received information that we will be receiving another 3 recruits from that class. They don't have the date in stone as to when the graduation is now. We normally get that date right off the hop, but because of COVID and unexpected things that may pop up due to COVID with the training, they don't give us a real graduation date until closer to that time, but I do anticipate those recruits would be coming to us somewhere around May of this year. So that'll give us 7 new recruits between February and May in our detachment. Staff Sergeant Ferguson has also been extended in her temporary assignment at regional headquarters until mid-April. And thankfully, we have Acting Staff Sergeant Andrew Hampson, who's will be continuing to backfill in that position, as well as Acting Sergeant Andrew Nicholson, who will continue to backfill for the administrative sergeant at the detachment. To the end of 2020, we had received 2 public complaints in the total year. So when I look at the total calls for service, which is around 12,500 approximately for last year, we had 2 public complaints in relation to those over 12,000 calls for service that we did have. One of those complaints was attributed to the year before, but wasn't processed administratively through the OIPRD until 2020. And the other one has concluded as well as unsubstantiated. In relation to media, we had 39 media releases added to the OPP news portal in December. 12 Twitter posts to the West Region OPP Twitter account. You'll see in the report that there was about 7,500 views of the videos that were on there. The most liked was the Paris Little Pantry donation that we did, the Paris drive-through Christmas parade, as well as the festive ride video that we posted as well that had over 3,000 views. The school resource officer continues to not be in the schools due to the COVID-19 restrictions, but again, continues to have remote contact with the school administration, is still continuing with exterior school patrol hours at lunchtime as part of the JET and the COVID initiative that we've been doing to try to break up those groups. What our school resource officer has also done in the previous month, we're trying to find ways of adapting that program to still get the safety information to kids in the school. So he has been able to go into the safety village, and they've done a number of different videos that they've put on thumb drives or jump drives of the program itself, and delivering those jump drives to the school so that the teachers can still deliver that safety programming via video as opposed to in person. And those formats that we've been able to do is kindergarten and grade 1 personal safety, and grade 3 bike safety is what we're doing right now. And we are still continuing with the virtual community presentations, mostly in relation to seniors and fraud awareness right now, that we've been able to transition electronically as well. In relation to focus patrols, December was a really busy month for us for proactive patrols and visibility. We had 2 focus patrols on the go, and we also had the Festive Ride campaign. So the Festive Ride campaign ran from December 26th to January 3rd. We had some pretty significant results this year. Whether those are good or bad, it depends on your perspective, I guess, in relation to the content. We set up 55 ride programs throughout the county. Over 2,300 vehicles were checked. We conducted 98 roadside screening tests. And if you recall, the legislation is now changed where we don't need a reasonable suspicion to request a roadside screening test. So you see why those tests are up in volume over other years, because we don't need those grounds. It can be a random roadside test. As a result, 12 people were removed from Brant County roads due to excess alcohol and/or drug consumption. Over 16 criminal charges were laid, 12 driver's license suspensions were issued ranging from 7 to 90 days. And we also had several other provincial offense charges laid as a result of the ride programs. And I've also put in the report there, many thanks to the PSB and our grant writers as well. This year we received $15,593 in ride grant funds to boost our Festive Ride program, as well as ride programs throughout the year that we do to target high alcohol and drug collision areas throughout the county. And we've also been approved for next year to receive $15,562 from the same grant program for the same purposes for traffic safety in the county. So thanks to the PSB for supporting us in that. The 2 focus patrols we had one running in St. George in relation to several complaints that we had in relation to youth and mischief. The focus patrol ran from December 3rd to December 31st. There was 17.5 hours of dedicated patrol. 10 officers were involved in those patrols. 2 provincial offense notices were issued and 1 warning was issued. And we also had the Paris Foot Patrol focus patrol on the go that ran from the December 15th to January 10th, where we had close to 47 hours of foot patrol in downtown Paris. 16 different officers participated in that additional foot patrol, and 2 provincial offenses notices were issued and 4 warnings were issued during that patrol as well. In relation to noteworthy items, COVID-19, due to the lockdown, there are some changes at our detachment. These are not recent changes since the social media post went out advising of these changes. I want to make that clear. These have been in existence since the provincial lockdown, so on December 26th, but I just wanted to bring it up in the report. Our front doors of the detachment are locked. Access is by appointment only. If somebody does need to come to the detachment, they do need to call the main detachment number to make an appointment for a COVID screening as well. And they need to have appropriate PPE to enter the detachment. For anybody who does have an emergency, our new detachment has a phone right at the front doors of the detachment. That phone immediately connects anybody who pushes the button to our dispatcher, who will immediately dispatch police or notify us on the inside of the building that assistance is required. To date, to the end of December, we have responded to 241 occurrences in relation to the EMCPA and the Reopening Act, the ROA. 33 of these complaints were in December. To report on the some different initiatives that we ran in the detachment other than the Festive Ride campaign, we also had our United Way campaign. Every year our officers take part in organizing, running, and contributing to the United Way campaign. It ran through November and December for us, and COVID obviously for any fundraising right now kind of creates some hurdles. But my kudos go out to Constable Ken Johnston and our detachment administrative clerk, Allison Druin. They were able to put together a raffle fundraiser this year where we involved the community as well as other employees throughout the county, including fire and EMS. And in total, we were able to raise just shy of $2,700 that was donated to the United Way. The nice thing about United Way donations now is that you can choose where you want your funds to go. And our officers chose that all of our funds were to be donated back to local Brant County community service programs. So that $2,700 will go to that. And I know there was a lot of PSB members that contributed to that campaign as well. So thank you for that. I just wanted to take a little bit of time. I don't normally go over the noteworthy incidents in much detail. It's more put into the report so that the public and yourselves can have some type of idea of what our officers are busy with through the month. But what I do want to point out in December, and when you read through the incidents that are on here, there's many, and a lot of them are in relation to a lot of different criminal offenses, a lot of impaired driving arrests, and a lot of proactive speed enforcement, but a lot of it is fairly excessive when it comes to speed, and as well as a lot of arrests in relation to ongoing occurrences that people have called in. The other thing I want to mention from this is you'll notice we've had a number of different incidents in December where the community has let us know of things that were going on. In relation to the incident that you see on the 1st of December, community members contacted the police in relation to a suspicious vehicle. We were able to locate the vehicle, and as a result, the male driver was arrested and charged for prohibited driving. What that means is it's a criminal code suspension for driving. It's not just a Highway Traffic Act offense that's been committed. And the vehicle was impounded. Later the same day, the same male was again arrested for shoplifting, possession of counterfeit currency, and possession of controlled substances. Throughout the narrative that I put here, we've had several arrests in relation to break and enter, fail to comply with release conditions, the Tobacco Tax Act. We've had a couple of very acute mental health crisis calls, stunt driving, mischiefs, well-being checks that have resulted in significant criminal code action. One that I will note here on the 14th of December, officers conducting radar patrol on Bailey Drive observed a vehicle traveling at 105 kilometers per hour in a 50 kilometer per hour zone. The vehicle was stopped and the local driver was charged with stunt driving, impaired driving, operating a motor vehicle with over 80 milligrams of alcohol, racing, having open alcohol. A lot of very significant traffic offenses that we've seen. Arriving to property damage, collisions, and making, there were several of them in here, making impaired driving arrests. We had one significant impaired causing bodily harm, several incidents responding to break and enters and locating and charging individuals, such as the 16th of December. There's a break and enter on Scott Ave. When we arrived, we located and arrested 2 adults, and between the 2 of them, they were charged with 12 criminal offenses. including not only break and enter, but theft and identity theft. So a lot of significant proactive work, some really good arrests in relation to ongoing crime, and a lot of great communication from the community with working with police in trying to get suspicious things dealt with, which is fantastic from my point of view. So I just wanted to point out those noteworthies. They're fairly significant and quite busy for what we saw in the month of December. Looking at trends and actions, of course, our December report is a year-end report. In relation to our trends, remember, it's not a year-end report in relation to our statistics in relation to charges, because those run a couple of months behind. So I anticipate in February that will be our year-end for the actual statistics side. But in relation to crime trends, violent crime as a whole in 2020 was down 17%. We saw 157 incidents of violent crime in the county in 2020 compared to 190 in 2019. And December itself was a bit of a dichotomy because violent crime was down by 43%, but we saw property crime increased by 44%. So the same decrease we saw in violent crime, we saw that increase in property crime, which I'll get to in a second. In relation to sexual assault incidents, we did see a 50% reduction compared to the year before. That, coupled with our increase in domestic violence that we're seeing, which I will get to, and the mental health increases that, again, I will get to when we do get further into the trends, could be somewhat concerning. It could be an actual decrease in sexual assault incidents, or it could just show us a very significant trend of non-reporting of such incidents. So that could be twofold. In relation to property crime, as I said, we did see significant decreases overall for 2020, a 12% reduction in property crime. Most significant decreases were in the categories of theft over 5,000, which is normally in relation to theft of vehicles, break and enter, and fraud. Vehicle-related crime, we saw an overall close to 30% decrease in 2020 compared to 2019, which is very significant. That translates to a 33% reduction in stolen vehicles, a 43% reduction in recovered stolen vehicles, and a 13% reduction in theft from motor vehicles. Moving on to collision, December is pretty much the first month in 2020 where we saw somewhat of a return to the 2019 collision volumes. We still did see a 6% decrease in total collisions in December. However, like I say, we are seeing those numbers start to return to pre-COVID numbers. Overall, in 2020, we saw a 25% decrease in the total volume of collisions, which means we saw 653 collisions in 2020 compared to 865 in 2019. So almost 200 fewer collisions that we saw. Property damage, personal injury collisions also decreased by 12%. And property damage overall decreased by 28%. So although we saw significant decreases in the volume of collisions, what's more than concerning is the increase that we saw in fatal motor vehicle collision injuries. We saw a 500% increase, which represented 8 people getting killed on our county roads this year. And again, those statistics also include off-road incidents, such as tractor fatalities and things of that sort that we had last year. But significant number of our roadway collisions involved motorcycles, as we all recall. And as a result of these tragic circumstances, we will be looking at a fairly aggressive motorcycle awareness campaign coming into the spring and summer of next year in relation to looking for those motorcycles when we're driving. In relation to our statistics and enforcement statistics from January 1st, again, I'll note that these are to the end of October, not to the end of the year. To the end of October, our members issued 3,666 total charges in the county. Just shy of 2,300 are for Highway Traffic Act offenses. Just over 1,000 are criminal code, and just over 350 are other charges such as Liquor License Act, Trespass to Property, Ontario Cannabis Act, things of that nature. Of the 2,300 Highway Traffic Act charges laid, 1,344 of those were for speeding, which is a 3% increase over 2019. What we're also seeing, and that you saw in the noteworthy incidents, is an increase in the number of criminal code non-traffic offenses in the county that we're seeing, and we're seeing an 11% increase, which represents an additional 87 criminal charges laid in the county this year over last, which, when you take into account that our calls for service in 2020 compared to 2019 were about 20% less, that increase in criminal code charges is fairly significant, although the numbers don't look that much. Also, speaking about fairly significant was the spike that we saw in December in relation to our mental health incidents in the county. It was our largest spike that we've seen in 2020. Level 1 incidents, and again, the difference between level 1 and all levels. Level 1 incidents are primary incidents that we get called for mental health. That is, the primary classification is mental health, as opposed to all level incidents. For example, if we go to a domestic where there are underlying issues of mental health, that doesn't get captured in a level 1 incident. Just for clarification, because I have got some questions on that recently. So level 1 incidents increased by 100% in December, with all levels increasing by 55%. Year to date, we've seen a 2.2% increase in level 1 mental health incidents and a 0.4% increase in all level mental health incidents. While these increases seem very small, on their own, they're very significant because they're in stark opposition to the overall decrease that we're seeing in crime trends. So if we're seeing such a decrease in our calls for service, decrease in violent crime, decrease in property crime, the areas that we are seeing increases in are domestic violence and mental health, which are concerning to us. And that's not just our community. I think that's representative of a lot of different communities right now. Speaking to in relation to domestic violence, domestic incidents increased by 21% in December compared to December last year. And year to date, we've had a 13% increase in domestic incidents, and that's in addition to the 25% increase we saw the year before. In relation to the OPP efficiency project, we've talked about this before, steps that our Provincial Communication Center is taking in relation to prioritizing calls for service in relation to police response, and those are specifically for 911 incidents, pocket dials, hang-ups, as well as our alarm calls. So in 2020, we saw, as a result of this project, we saw a 79% decrease in our 911 incidents and frontline response. And in alarms, we saw a 17% reduction. And we've also done, as we talked about before, a fairly significant proactive initiative through the county with their alarm response and false alarm monitoring, as well as our proactive initiatives through the Community Street Crimes Unit with going to our number of businesses that have a high volume of false alarms and trying to get them educated with their alarms and the alarm company itself. So those numbers are both very good for us. In relation to patrol hours, in December, our members completed 725 cruiser patrol hours, 63 foot patrol hours, 11 motorcycle patrol hours, and 26 school patrol hours. So far in 2020, Brant members have conducted 1,249 hours of foot patrol, which is 23% increase compared to the same time frame last year. And year to date for 2020, Brant members conducted just over 10,000 hours of cruiser patrol, 88 hours of motorcycle patrol, 40 hours of marine patrol, 259 hours of ATV, 119 hours of bicycle patrol, and as I spoke about, the foot patrol, and 256 hours of school patrol. In 2020, our zone duty hours also saw an overall increase of 6% compared to 2019. Most significant increases, as we've discussed previously, were in East Zone and the provincial highways. And just a correction to the numbers in this last sentence in the report. This equates to, it says 46,288. That's supposed to be just over 51,000 zone duty hours for 2020, compared to 48,000 approximately hours that we had in 2019. So we saw an additional 3,000 hours in 2020. And pending any questions, that is my report. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Inspector Anderson. Member Brown, you have a question?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Inspector Anderson. I'm wondering if you're able to, maybe for the next meeting or in the future, have a look. It's impressive the number of collisions, the decrease in the number by 25%. I'm wondering if there's any correlation between the reduction in accidents at the high incident intersections that you had expressed to us before, where you conducted the focus patrols. I'm looking to see if there's any decrease in those intersections specifically related to the focus patrols.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, that's a great question. We do have our analysts working on that now. So at the end of every year, we do a motor vehicle collision review. And in light of our, if you remember, we did quite a heavy presence on the highways the year before, and we were able to achieve a 0 fatality year. And then we spiked up again this year. So we are going to be looking at implementing those areas and those focus patrol areas again. So we will be doing that review, and our analyst is doing it currently. So when that report is completed, whether that's for the next meeting or the following meeting, I'll absolutely bring that forward.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Inspector Anderson? Hearing none, seeing none. Thank you very much, Inspector Anderson, for the detailed report. It's much appreciated. In our package, we also have the OPP false alarms monthly summary report. On page something. Hard to run all these different screens at the same time. Page 35. Is there any questions with regards to that? Seeing none, we therefore need to have a motion to accept both the detachment commander's report for December 2020 and the false alarms report. Mayor Bailey, thank you. Member Verhey, seconder. All those in favor? Carried, thank you.
Madam Chair, sorry, can I just bring up one more thing about the detachment commander report I forgot to address in there?
Certainly.
If you'll notice, and I've been meaning to bring this up at the last few meetings and I keep forgetting, and obviously I almost forgot again, but if you look in the violent crime section of the appendix, the statistical appendix, it shows the number of homicides, if you look at that, as being 2 for 2019. We did not have 2 homicides in Brant County in 2019, and I wanted to clarify that because I've done a lot of work with general headquarters in relation to these numbers. There were 2 homicides that were in the jurisdiction of Brantford City Police that the OPP was assisting with. And the way that those homicides as charges were laid were categorized, it fell to the closest OPP detachment in relation to the statistics. So the numbers that you're seeing there are not homicides that have taken place in Brant County, nor are they collected by Statistics Canada. With our criminal investigation branch, I am assured that they do their own statistical report to Statistics Canada just for that purpose, because you can have homicide investigations with several police services involved, but you don't want every police service to be characterized statistically as having that homicide statistic within their area. So if you do see those in there, those are not our numbers, and that's the reason that they're being captured in that report, but they are not in the county.
Thank you, Inspector Anderson, for that clarification. That makes a lot of sense. Any questions on that? Okay, great. So if we move on to section 10 of our agenda, communications. In our package, there is a letter from the Deputy Solicitor General with a note of thanks to police service boards for the work that we continue to do throughout the pandemic. I don't think there's any actionable items in that letter, but it's been received. And then as well, we have some updated communications. I know Adam's not here on the line right now, but I know he's been diligently working back and forth with Ed Darris and the folks from the Brant Towing Group, and together Vice Chair Brown and I worked with Adam. We didn't feel it was necessary. Ed was available to come as a delegation today should we have needed it, but we didn't feel at this time it was necessary given the situation in terms of where they're at with their progress. And, included in your package here is an update from Ed on where things stand with the Brant Towing Group. I'm sure you've all kind of reviewed that. They're trying to schedule a meeting to hold elections. They're trying to get organized to be able to do some of the work that we've asked them to do, but they have not been able to do that yet. They want to be able to do that in an in-person setting and don't have the capability to do it electronically. So Ed did provide this update to us. I also confirmed with Adam that we have not received at this point yet, but Adam continues to follow up with Ed and Cope about the statistics and the reporting that's part of the contract. So I'm not sure what else we need to say there, but I don't know if anybody has any other comments about Ed's or needs any clarification about Ed's report. Seeing none. So we'll need to seek a motion then here now to accept both of these communications as information. Is anybody willing to put forward that motion? Thank you, Mayor Bailey. Seconder? Member Brown, and all those in favor? Thank you, carried. Nancy, please pass on some thanks to Adam for his diligent follow-up with the Brant Towing Group. I know it's I know he's trying to get things resolved for everybody. So then section 11, other business, I don't believe we have any. Correct, Nancy? Okay. Updates then, Councillor Pierce isn't here today right now, but I'm not sure, Mayor Bailey, is there anything from council that should be shared, or any updates that you might have?
Yeah, we did at council talk an awful lot about speed spies, portable ones or permanent ones. We haven't really decided. but there are lots of statistics in Europe that, especially in Holland, that the speed spies that are permanently located. Some people say that, once you're caught once, you're careful, but it's proven that that's not true. When you speed because you're going somewhere in a hurry. So I'm in big favor of permanent spy cameras. They generate revenue and all kinds of things. So it's at a toss around stage right now at council, but we did speak about it in length at the last council meeting. So just something that's going around right now. That's it.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, just through you, if I could, to Mayor Bailey.
Mhm.
Are those in relation to speed spies, Mayor Bailey, or the photo radar possibilities, or
They're
both?
actually, it's a little bit of both, but it was the photo radar.
Okay.
At a future meeting, we'll have an update once all the paperwork is signed and the contracts are dotted and crossed and everything on what the new extended service contract will entail and what the deployment will be for that. So that'll be at a future meeting once everything is done, and we'll have a better understanding of how all that's going to dovetail together with the Brant Safe Streets program and all the different safety programs. So that'll be at the future. Next item, Zone 4 update, but Marty, let me be the first to congratulate you on your election as chair for Zone 4. Well done, sir. And I know you'll do a great job. We all have faith in you. But any updates other than the election results from Zone 4?
Thank you for the kind words. Not really. I have a call this afternoon with Kimberly Calderson, who is the new Secretary Treasurer. She took Deb Reed's position. Deb Reed was amazing, and I hear great things about Kimberly as well. It's just they are big shoes to fill. So we're going to chat this afternoon about setting an agenda, organizing the next meeting, and try to get this little group back to some sort of regular meeting sequence. So hopefully by the next PSB meeting, I'll have a meeting behind us and a little bit more structure and some things to report on.
All the best in those endeavors, Marty. Mayor Bailey?
Well, I'd like to congratulate you separately, Marty, just because when I was dethroned from vice chair of Zone 4, when we had the elections, I was the first member of Brant County to ever sit on that board or that committee, only as vice chair. So you are the first person to ever hold that seat in the county of Brant. So congratulations. I know it's a new group of people there, a fairly new group of people there. So I wish you the very best, and I can't wait until we can all join you at those meetings all over the place. So enjoy yourself and bring back as much to us as you can. But congratulations. It's a really big deal. Thank you.
The two comments, the bar seems to be getting higher with all of these congratulatory comments. So, man, what am I getting into? And secondly, there was another party that put their name forward, and I thought, well, I'm certainly not going to I don't have the experience, but I think that speaks to the county of Brant, the involvement from the OPP, the staff at OPP, and all the officers there, and yourself, Mayor Bailey, and our police services board. I think we were perceived as a fairly active, energetic group, and I think that's what helped us get representation. So I have to say it certainly wasn't based on me, because I don't have much of a profile to show for. So thank you.
Well, I think a lot of it is wrapped around you. I think you have a perfect personality to represent us, and I'm really glad you went for it.
Well done. Okay, so then moving on to the community safety wellbeing plan update. Quick update for you that we received communications from the Solicitor General's office that are we originally the plans were due now, January 2021, and back a few months ago we received notice that they would be extended due to COVID and the pandemic. The deadline would be extended, and then we recently received, as we all saw, last meeting, the communication that said they're due in July of 2021. So our committee's been on hold since March with everything and the prioritization of the county's committees and the work that they're doing. So I'm pleased to report that Councillor LaFerriere and various inputs from various people, including myself, were able to get this committee going again. We have a meeting on Thursday morning. We have a short 5.5 month window to restart the process and complete it. Inspector Anderson's part of that as well. So we'll talk on Thursday about what that means for the plan and what that means for the deadline. And hopefully we'll have a more fulsome report now that we'll be meeting virtually as well. But it's important that this committee get going again now that we have a very pressing deadline to get that plan completed. So I'll have more up to date for you at the next meeting. I don't have any specific update to give you as chair this morning, other than just we continue to work with county staff are working on the website piece. I know Inspector Anderson's been working on that as well. Melissa from the county reached out about that and having some contact information for myself on there. As you know, we sent a message to the OPP members. I felt it was important to include not just the gift itself, but a message that goes with it. And it's nice to have the feedback that's well received. Yeah, so we continue to do some work in between all of our meetings, which is good. And I'm not sure if there's anything specific on the 2021 priorities that we want to discuss today. Inspector Anderson, do you have a timeline on when the action plan will be published by OPP headquarters that you drafted?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. I was just thinking about that when you had mentioned the priorities for 2021. I did get the notification that our report has been approved at all levels and was going to printing. That was in mid-December, but I haven't received an update on that. I know they aren't, when I say they were going to printing, they actually aren't doing printed copies this year. It's all going to be electronic. So I'm hoping that will speed up the process. It's normally around June that we see that come out, but I'm certainly hoping, because it's all electronic, we might see that disclosed earlier than that. So unfortunately, I don't have a deadline for you, but I'm anticipating everything's been approved and they're just putting it to release, I would imagine. I'm hoping the first quarter.
Thank you. Any other updates from any of the other PSB members? Seeing none. It is snowing like the dickens outside right now, so it's a good thing we are not driving home from a meeting. Is there any need to go in camera, any intimate or personal matters to deal with respect to anything that you have, Inspector Anderson?
I do not have anything. I would just check with Acting Staff Sergeant Hampson. I don't believe he has anything either, but I just want to make sure.
Nothing here.
Well, that's good. So that, unless there's anything else, that we've officially run through our agenda this morning. I know we're all busy and have other things to attend to as well. Our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, February 16th. At 9 a.m. Nancy will send out the calendar, if she hasn't already. I'm sure she has already, our calendar appointments. That'll obviously be another electronic participation until we hear otherwise. Here's hoping that sunnier days are ahead where we can actually meet in person again. I love the efficiency of the virtual meetings, but I miss the connections and the meetings after the meetings and being able to catch up with you all. So we'll do Tuesday, February 16th at 9 a.m. And if there's nothing further, we will adjourn. Do we call for, I don't have my handy notes in front of me. Can I just adjourn, Nancy, or do we declare it adjourned, or do I need a motion?
One person to motion to adjourn.
Thank you. So a motion to adjourn, please. Marty, Member Verhey, thank you. At 10:12 and seconded by, no, do I need a seconder? No.
Yeah,
See,
no, you don't
at
need a
my
seconder.
meeting,
We're good.
at my meetings, we just declare adjournment. So I'm just so confused by all this. Anyways, 10:12, meeting is adjourned. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Stay safe.